Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first podcast, episode one. Today, I'm joined by Dan, Stefan, and Ryan, and we're going to be talking about the growth in gaming from when we were kids to what it is today, and also dealing with sort of a family as well. So, I'm going to throw it to Dan first. How you doing, buddy? You all right?
I'm doing good here. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. So, how did you? So I wanted to know how you sort of got into gaming. Like, what was your first experience of gaming?
Well, for me, my first experience was probably my dad, which is weird. Like, I think it's pretty rare to have a dad or mum gamer in the family.
Yeah.
But he used to play like all these crazy adventure games. Like, I think Indiana Jones was the first one I ever used to watch, and that was
Okay.
like this crusty 8-bit, those old story ones where you talk to someone and you type in an answer.
Oh
If
my!
it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Was that on the square screen as well? I remember like the four
It,
by
it
four.
was it was pure crust, man, and it was like on floppy disk as well. Um,
Oh my goodness! Yeah.
but like I used to watch him for hours on end do that, and all it was puzzles, like just puzzles. Like you didn't, there was no controlling, fighting, nothing like that. It was just puzzles and talking. Like the way you fought someone was by typing in punch and throw a punch.
Oh man.
So that was my first introduction into gaming.
Okay.
Um, then from there, it was basically watching him play games until he finally got me a console,
Yeah. What was
which
your
was
first one?
the Nintendo.
Okay.
I think he had an Atari in the house, and I do vaguely remember playing it, like the Space Invaders, like Asteroids and all them.
Yeah.
But yeah, the first one I actually like really remember playing was the Nintendo, which is just Mario.
Yeah.
Like I'm Mario through and through.
Oh. Well, we'll get into Mario's. We'll get into
Yeah,
consoles in a bit for sure.
yeah.
So Ryan, what about you, dude? What was the first sort of experience you had with gaming? Like, what got you into it?
So for me, it was watching my brother play on his SNES. And the first game I can remember him playing was NBA Jam, which I used to play constantly just because all I had to do was hit 3 pointers. And then when you're playing against someone who's 9 years older than you, that comes in pretty handy. Um,
Yeah.
and then the other game was Mario Kart, the original on the SNES, which I absolutely loved. Um, And then I think it wasn't long before I started begging my parents for my own console, and I ended up with a Mega Drive.
Okay. Yeah. Um, I think my first console was a Mega Drive as well, if I remember right. Sega Mega Drive, right?
Yeah,
The
Sega Mega Drive.
one where you put the
Mine came
cartridge
with
in.
the CD ROM on the side of it as well.
Yeah.
Can you remember that?
Oh yeah, dude. Oh
I had
yeah.
about 2 games available for it. Totally worth it.
Yeah. Awesome. Steph, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, good man.
Yeah, good.
First console for me, I think similar to Dan. Surprisingly, so my parents weren't into gaming at all, but surprisingly, my dad for some reason had an Atari in the house. So that was my first kind of experience of it. So yeah, asteroids and that sort of stuff. But my
Wow.
first console was the PlayStation, so I went the other way. Um, and yeah, the classics of kind of Spyro and Crash Bandicoot, those guys, Tomb Raider, all the
Yeah.
pixels.
I
That
was
was
yeah. I was looking into this earlier actually, and the PlayStation was out in '94. So
yeah,
I guess just as we were, just sort of our when we were what 5, 4, 4, 5.
yeah, around
Dan,
that.
you were. Yeah.
You're being born, weren't you, at that age? Being
I was.
conceived.
Yeah. Well, I was playing games when I was out the womb, dude. Yeah.
You came out with a
Um,
controller in hand.
yeah. A joystick. Yeah.
Oh,
Um, so we talked about the Atari. I never uh, had that console. Was that similar to when you go to an arcade and you play in the machines? Was it that sort of feel
yeah,
to it?
it was like a joystick controller from
Okay.
memory. It was, and
If
it was just literally like he played ping pong and Space Invaders.
Imagine what you see on like mini clip now, it was probably worse than that graphically and everything else.
Oh
That's
yeah,
so
like
interesting. You talking about Miniclip.
Oh,
Remember miniclip.com?
that was what IT lessons at school were basically made up of, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah, sorry.
absolutely.
Was that the site where it just had loads of games on it?
Yeah.
Like crusted games. Oh man.
So Ryan, we went to similar schools, right? So was it the same for you? Were you playing a lot of miniclip.com when you were a teenager?
Oh
And
yeah,
what was the other
constantly.
one?
I mean, that's the only
Uh,
reason I did GCSE IT.
yeah, yeah. And I remember playing. Was it Mafia? Something? Do you
Yeah,
remember that, Stefan?
yeah,
Yeah,
that was like pure, like it was text based, right? But you had to like buy certain things and attack people and do that sort of stuff, right? It was,
yeah.
yeah,
It
that
was.
was, I remember that.
Okay, cool. So I want to know from each of you, what is sort of your favorite game? Not something that particularly you're into now, but from your past, looking back fondly on it, what's your favorite game?
That's so
To whoever.
hard.
Yeah.
That's a really hard question because there's so many influential games.
Okay. I guess what was it then that influenced what genres you like the most?
Um, I guess like I'm a super like fantastical person. Like, I love fantasy and I love being sucked into it. And so like Monkey Island was a good one, which
Okay.
was before you guys were even born again.
Ah, I love Monkey Island.
Um, it was like 1990, and actually they made a remake on it on the Xbox like 3 years ago, and you
Mhm.
could actually switch between 8-bit and HD, which is pretty cool. But
Yeah.
that then led on to when I was playing games like Mario 64, and like I think though the game that really like changed it for fantasy was Zelda for me, like the
Okay.
Ocarina of Time,
Yeah.
and that game just like broke me. Like I still like get teary thinking about when he pulls the sword out of the cathedral and the whole world just goes to pan, like goes to the pot. Um, so yeah, for me, like I think the Zelda
Okay.
series is probably the biggest change for me.
Anyone else?
I reckon for me, there's probably two. The earliest one I remember really getting addicted to was on the first PlayStation. That was Spyro. Uh,
Oh yeah.
and that was one like being a really young kid having a PlayStation in my room, which was dangerous. And it'd be like Sunday mornings or Saturday mornings, getting up at like 6 or 7 a.m. because who needs sleep as a child,
Yeah. Yeah.
and just like playing all morning. Before you know it, it's like the afternoon, and just like powering through it. The amount of times I completed that game was nuts. The remake as well. Now recently, I've obviously downloaded that, so I've been playing that a bit more,
Okay.
just for nostalgia. Um, and then for more modern stuff, I guess was Call of Duty, and that's like the really original Call of Duty. You remember this one, Matt, from
Oh
the
yeah.
days we were playing it, right? So the very first Call of Duty on PC, because the kind of way I progressed into more modern type games, I guess, was through my granddad and like making PC. So I was a PC gamer for a long time,
I
and
remember that actually. He used
yeah,
to make your PC almost every couple years, right?
yeah, I mean, you kind of had to, right, and still kind of do now.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that was what it was. Make a new PC, and the first Call of Duty again completed that game.
We
Like I
played
don't know,
hours.
so many times. Yeah, it was great, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was
That
good.
was a classic. So that was it for me. Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Ryan?
Um, so I was actually going to mention Zelda as well. Similar to Dan, like I'm super into my fantasy. However, I'm going to throw Metal Gear Solid in there as well. Well, it's not really
Okay.
fantasy; it's that kind of role-playing game. Me and my mates spent days and days playing the first one
Mm.
because we just wanted to unlock. You know, you do it one time, you can get like the stealth suit, and then the next time you get a bandana. Um, and then we just carried on playing it and playing it, and we ended up unlocking a tuxedo. And we went and checked it, and apparently you have to complete it like 6 or 7 times to get the tuxedo or something. But it was just one of the games that we absolutely loved, so we ended up playing it
Yeah.
over and over.
Metal Gear Solid. I never played Metal Gear Solid. I don't know why.
You
Did
missed
any of
out.
you really?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sure. I'm sure they'll do a remake of it at some point.
I'd say
It's
so.
I don't think I ever played it because it was a PlayStation game from memory.
It
It was
was, yeah,
mainly
yeah. That's right.
PlayStation.
I did, but it wasn't really. I essentially wasn't good enough at gaming to be able to manage it. So I mean, Spyro was my speed. Metal Gear Solid, I remember hiding in cardboard boxes for a short amount of time
Yeah,
before getting
yeah,
caught,
that's
and that
fine.
was game over. So that's my
it's
experience of it.
it's funny we talk about were you a PlayStation person or even an Xbox as we're growing up. Where did you sort of start? So, Stefan, you had a PlayStation. Dan and Ryan, have you flipped between the two, or has it always been one or the other?
I've always been Nintendo until Xbox came along.
Okay.
And then once Xbox came, I was Xbox. And then until I really met you, Matt, or when we started going to more PC games,
Yeah.
then I was PC. And so now, I mean, I have an Xbox. That's all I have besides my PC. So
Yeah.
I've never ever owned a PlayStation, and it's like this whole Nintendo PlayStation war turned into Xbox PlayStation war, and I've
Yeah.
always stuck true to anything against PlayStation. I don't even know why, because the games are sick on PlayStation. I don't, and they even offered like free. I remember they were offering like free online at the time
Yeah.
as well,
Yeah.
compared to Xbox, which you had to pay for. So, and I'm a stinge, so I should have really gone to PlayStation. But yeah, I'm Xbox or Nintendo.
Okay. Yeah, because I
See, I
remember the
was always a
first
PlayStation kid.
Xbox was that massive big brick thing. Do you remember that?
Oh
It
yeah,
was like
the first one was not streamlined.
no, not at all.
It's
Yeah,
like having
it
a
was.
caravan in your bedroom.
Yeah. Uh, I think me myself, it was the Sega Mega Drive, and then it was a PlayStation. And I remember the day I got a PlayStation. I remember where I was at Christmas, and it was one of the best days ever. And just playing games all day, every day. Um, and then it moved to Xbox when we got Call of Duty. I think, Stefan, and we
Yeah,
started playing
yeah.
Call of Duty 4, which for me was the best Call of Duty that they ever made. Um,
That was the reason I got an Xbox 360 was because I was PlayStation, now onto PC as I mentioned, and then the other reason I got an Xbox 360 is because you and Dan and everyone else were playing Call of Duty so much, and I was sitting there on my ones on PC, so I thought
yeah,
I've got to change over. So that's the
yeah.
first Xbox I got, and then I've kind of stuck with that ever since between that and PC.
And what about you, Ryan? So were you influenced by friends to what you got, or were you sort of like Dan, like set on one?
Yeah,
Um,
so I was kind of set with PlayStation, and at the time, all my best mates had PlayStations as well. But that's probably because we started with the first one, and there wasn't really anything else out at the time that compared to it. And then I stuck with PlayStation right up until PS4. And about a year ago, Joe convinced me to trade that in and get an Xbox.
okay.
And I'm glad we did it because it just means I get to play with all my mates on Xbox now, which is
Yeah.
something I never really
Good.
did on PlayStation.
Yeah, and that social element is just, I think for me, thinking about sort of through my teenage years, that's what kept me in games. I remember one story in particular of when Lord of the Rings Online came out. I don't know if any of you remember that,
Oh yeah,
or into MMOs. Yeah, I took, and I know my mum's going to listen to this, but I remember we were in sixth form, and me and Adam Gibson, remember Adam, stuff. Me and Adam took like a week or so off school to just play it 24/7, and it was just the best time. You sort of had no cares, right? You just play the game. Didn't have to
yeah,
worry about anything else. Um, right, I want to move this on to talking about graphics now, and it's I think an interesting topic whether games that were good back in the day can still be good now, even with their graphics, or if you think that the graphics that we have today elevate games. So, does anyone have any thoughts on what they prefer?
Oh, I don't know. I think the danger for me is going back to any old games is always in your mind you have an image of what it is, and you
Yeah.
always go back to play it, and it's almost the graphics in your mind are instantly ruined by the amount of pixels that you see on the screen being less than 5.
Yeah.
So that's always the danger.
Yeah. Well, we could talk about sort of classic WoW, and when that came out, obviously people have been playing it for such a long time, and when it came out, I mean, I played it the first month, and yes, it is. I mean, I like the gameplay, but graphically, it doesn't hold up to current WoW. Um, Especially if you play it, they had a slider on the game where you could choose to have the old graphics or the new ones with extra pixels in, but the old one was just it's just not the same. As you say, our memory of it is a lot different. What about you, Dan?
Yeah, I think like what you say there, like the option to slide between the two graphics is interesting because, like I said
Mm.
with Monkey Island, you had the option to play 8-bit or HD, like 1080p version. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, a bit of nostalgia. I'll go to the 8-bit and see what that's like. And
Mhm.
it was horrible. Like you can't even make out anything. Like someone's face is 3 pixels together with a black dot on it, and it's disgusting. But I think what made games kind of cool and new consoles was that the updated graphics.
Yeah.
And so you do love the games at the time, and you think they've got great graphics, and then yeah, you go back and look at it, and it kind of destroys the game for you. So I'm kind of against the whole, you know how they bring like, oh, here's 150 of your old favorite games onto your new
Yeah.
console. I
Okay.
kind of don't like that because it kind of ruins some of the memories I had on some of those games.
Yeah. No, I see where you're coming from for sure. And sort of those memories, and we were talking about now our past and sort of the things we enjoyed about games. Those memories don't need to be relived again, right? They're great stories, and I think you can ruin it sometimes. What about you, Ryan?
Oh, I agree, like totally. There's so many games that I've played from like my childhood, and it just completely ruins the memory of the game.
Yeah.
Like it's so much better left in the back of your head with them great memories of it,
Yeah.
rather than trying to play it now and just seeing the abomination on the screen.
I think there are a couple of games though that I would really like a remake, to be honest, and one of them is Oblivion.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
but
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
Um,
technically,
great.
yeah, technically every Elder Scrolls game is kind of an Oblivion update because it's
yeah,
the similar
I,
style, just with updated graphics and story.
I think it was. I think it was the story of Oblivion,
Mm.
but also the world they created.
Wait, it's magical.
Yeah, which was is different to sort of the Skyrims, etc., where I didn't really. Um, I don't know what it was about Oblivion. There was something.
I,
Do you
I
guys?
I agree. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I've done, yeah, obviously Oblivion, Skyrim, tried a bit of Elder Scrolls Online, and obviously the online's a different type of thing. But
Yeah,
Oblivion's always been the one that's kept me hooked in. And I don't know whether age comes into that because we were younger when Oblivion came out. Maybe that was, it was the newest thing of its type, and it was so amazing at that point, and we had more time to play. Maybe that was the reason for us kind of having fonder memories of it.
yeah. I mean, Dan, do you remember Oblivion? There was one day I went to Dan's house. We set up two TVs, 2 Xboxes, and I remember we were playing Oblivion, and his dad came in the morning and said, "I'm going to work. See you later." I remember literally it felt like 10 minutes. He came in and said, "Hey," and I was like, "Oh, have you not left yet?" And he said, "No, it's lunchtime." I was like, "Okay." And then he poked his head in again later, and he was back from work, and it's almost like time disappeared in Oblivion.
The best thing was that he then came back later and said, "All right, I'm going to bed." I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah,
"Oh,
that was
we're
it.
still playing." And then the next morning, after work, it was like we did
Yeah,
like a straight almost 48 hours of gaming on Oblivion,
yeah, yeah.
and it's ridiculous.
Do, do you reckon though? Because on the remake side, sometimes my feeling is so. Take again because the original Call of Duty I mentioned it was one of my favorites. I don't know if they
Yeah.
remade that. If I went to play it, if that would kind of help with the ruining of the original item in my mind, if that makes sense. If I went back to the original now, I know that there isn't a new remastered version, so I can kind of get into it, accept the
I see.
graphics what they are, play it because it's the game that I know and love. Whereas if there's a remastered, I don't know
Oh,
if I'd
yeah,
be always thinking, oh, I could be playing this, but better. It's like you said
yeah. I
with
get.
with Monkey Island, Dan. You always want to flip the switch between the new one and the old one, and you're always going to flip to new because why wouldn't your eyes want better graphics?
Yeah, it's not just
It's in.
graphics as well; it's movement.
Mm.
Like I went and played GoldenEye again on
Oh
Nintendo
dear.
64, and the hardest thing is actually just aiming at somebody. Like I didn't realize how much auto aim is on there and how awkward it is. So like you've got the graphics are one thing, and then you've got just like actual the feel of the game is so much different now. So like Call of Duty remastered feels so much different to when we were playing it on Modern Warfare 1, if you
I
get
guess you
me.
could. I guess you could throw in as well. If you look at games like Counter Strike and their graphics, and then think about United Offensive, Call of Duty, the graphics aren't that dissimilar, but
As
the
in,
gameplay, like pixel wise, right?
Yeah, they're probably out at a similar time. I don't know how old Counter Strike is. There's probably
Yeah.
loads
So
of
that's so definitely, Stefan. You saying going back to play something like United Offensive now would probably be okay
yeah.
because we don't have that new version to play. Of course, we got new Call of Duties, but no game will ever be um, you know, United Offensive or Call of Duty 4 and things like that. So yeah, I definitely think that's true. Um, yeah. Well, what about you, Ryan? What do you um, what do you think about that?
Um, it was interesting, like talking about the different feel in the movement. Because have you seen the Final Fantasy VII remaster? I'm guessing you won't have
No,
played
I
it.
haven't actually.
Have you
No.
seen anything about it? So, I mean, it's an amazing game. I played that when it was on PlayStation. Well, I think I spent an entire summer holiday on that game. Um, but they've remastered it and it's 4K and it looks absolutely stunning. But they've given you the option of having like the classic gameplay or the new
Yeah.
gameplay. So it always looks new, but they've given you the option for the gameplay, which I thought was quite interesting. They can get that kind of old feel with the good looks, or you
Yeah,
can do
I
like
think
a
that's.
brand new version of it.
I mean, that's very similar to, as we're saying, with Classic WoW, sort of that old feel with the new graphics you can have with the slider. Um, but no, so ultimately, what do we think then? Do we think that the past should stay in the past, or are we happy with remasters? What's a sort of a verdict on that? Personally, I think our memories of these games were some of the best times in gaming that I can remember. That I don't really have to live that again. There's new memories to make in gaming.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think those games of the past should stay in the past. Like
Mm.
Steph said, it's the time that you're playing, like your age that you're there doing it, and that
Yeah,
experience of having a current modern game at the time with your friends. So I
yeah,
don't think bringing it back is worth doing.
no,
I think it is one of those things that you probably will never see the end of, because it's I imagine so much easier for a company to bring out a remastered version of a game.
oh
Like
yeah,
we saw Modern Warfare remastered come out, right? The original one remastered just before the newest Modern Warfare drop, and it's such a, I imagine anyway, not from being in the industry, but it seems like such a quicker thing to drop, and yet they
yeah.
make so much from it. So
Yeah,
I mean, that's the
again,
same.
why wouldn't they, right?
It's the
yeah.
same thing as Disney and bringing out remastered films.
Oh
It's just
yeah.
a lot easier to do that. And what about you, Ryan? So what's the verdict?
Yeah, I think it should just stay in the past. I
Yeah,
was kind of okay with remasters, but now that I think about it, the only time you're gonna play a remaster is if you love the original. So
yeah,
you may as well just keep that love and leave it locked in the past.
yeah. Okay. No, and yeah, I agree. I agree. I don't think there's any sort of yeah. I don't think there's any sort of reason to bring it back. Okay, so I want to move on to now the state of money in games and more specifically microtransactions. And we're going to save the topic of EA till the end. Okay. Um, uh, so, so what do you guys think of that? What do you think of going from, I guess, different models? So we started off with you buy the game, you get the whole game, and sort of when the new game comes out, you'll buy that one. And then we've got the subscription models of sort of what the MMOs from back in the day, things like Star Wars Galaxies. Oh, do you remember Star Wars Galaxies? That was amazing. Uh,
Is it still going now?
no, they closed the service down because
Oh,
Old
really?
Republic came up.
Oh.
So Star Wars Galaxies, and then there was obviously MMOs before that, which had that pay monthly model. And then obviously moving forward, we've got expansions of games that you pay for, and then microtransactions of mobile games. And now from mobile games, it's moved into games like, you know, you can buy skins in games, and some games are pay to win, of course. Um, just broadly, what do you? I'll go to Ryan first. What do you think about that sort of model of gaming?
So the subscription ones, I don't have an issue with. Like I used to play quite a lot of games that I subscribed to, but it always kind of felt like you got your money's worth for it. There was constantly like new stuff coming out, um,
Yeah,
and expansions is kind of the same, I guess. I'm always a bit wary with expansions though, just because you're never quite sure if it's worth the
mm,
money or not. Like I've
okay.
bought expansions to games before and spent almost as much as the original game, and maybe got an extra 2 or 3 hours gameplay out of it. So I'm always
So
a bit.
off the back of that, Ryan, do you think there's a difference between sort of an MMO expansion to a sort of let's say a Call of Duty expansion? Do you
Oh
think
yeah,
that there's more content in one than the other?
yeah. I'd say MMOs you get a lot more content.
Hmm.
It's almost like, wow. If you take WoW for example, like Burning Crusade, um, added, was it an extra 10 levels,
Yeah,
a whole
I
new
mean,
area, hours and
yeah,
hours of gameplay, right? Whereas you can buy an expansion for something on the Xbox and literally get 2 or 3 hours extra gameplay on it.
yeah.
Um,
And so, and that sort of when you see it, people can data mine now and see the expansion is already locked in the game files when the
mhm.
first game comes out.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's there ready to go. Um, Pay to win, I just can't stand.
yeah,
Like, I miss the good old days of, you know, if you're good at games, you get rewarded.
yeah, yeah. What about you, Dan? What are you thinking?
I have a real bone to pick with this subject.
Okay.
Like, I don't know if it's just the pure stinge in me, but like, what annoys me about the. So I don't mind the paying a subscription per month, right? But I feel like if you pay a subscription, you should get the game for free. So
Yeah,
not to diss on WoW, and I love WoW, and I always go back to WoW, and I probably will, even though I
yeah,
say I won't. But you're paying what, $9.99 now, like ten
yeah,
pound a month. Within 4 months, you've already brought the game anyway.
Yeah.
yeah,
So it should just be included in the price, and you also, what then happens is, so say you were the first vanilla WoW player, and you decide I'm going to stick with WoW for the next 10 years, or I don't know how old WoW is now, but you've then paid for the new expansion, the first expansion, which I'm not sure which one was that one. Burning Crusades was the first one, was it? First
no,
expansion.
classic. Well, the first one was just vanilla WoW, just called World of
Yeah, but
Warcraft.
then as in the first expansion that came
Oh,
out was
Burning
Burning
Crusade. Yeah,
Crusades,
yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And then what, Wrath after that?
Wrath, Cat. Yeah,
Yeah. So, but then you've brought Burning Crusades for another £40. But then what then gets me is that someone who then joins into the game, and this isn't WoW actually, how WoW does it, but you've then got to buy every expansion to just play with your friends. So if you join
that's
in
true.
Wrath, you've then got
Yeah.
to go back and buy the original. You've got to buy Burning Crusades, and you've got to buy Wrath to stay with your friends.
Mm.
And so it ends
Especially
up
in a community
120
game, right?
pounds. Yeah,
Yeah,
and so that makes it very hard. And when you're already paying then a £10 per month subscription, that kind of grates on me. And then you've got another model like Destiny, which was you pay 45 quid for the game at the start, and that's fine. And then they release an expansion, and if someone new comes to that expansion, all they have to do is buy the new game for £45, and they get both of them. They get all of them.
right.
But then if you've got the original game, you have to then buy the expansion. So there should be some
Okay.
kind of system. Like it's just like there's a lot of money going to waste.
Are you
Um,
happy then? Are you happy with what Overwatch is doing with? So Overwatch 2 is coming out, but you don't
yeah,
have to buy Overwatch 2 to still play with your friends.
yeah, that's great. Like I think if you've
Yeah,
purchased the first game, then like I think expansions just wind me up sometimes because it is
yeah,
like Ryan said, it is just a money grab for 2 hours of content when
yeah,
you've already paid so much money for the game. But I think pay to win though, I I don't like pay to win, but
yeah.
I also think there's a way you can make um, in PvE. I don't mind pay to win.
Okay.
PvP is where I have a problem with it because then when it becomes competitive,
Hmm.
you're stunting a lot of people who might have the skill more than someone else, but the other
Yeah.
person's got more money than you.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I guess the only way to combat that is you say if it was a WoW arena and you were paid to win an arena because you could buy the best gear, what you do is when you go into the arena, you both get equal gear, and then it's skill based from that.
Okay. So it sort of it will level the playing field for sure. Okay.
Yeah,
Stefan, what do you think on this? Because I know we go back and forth with sort of. I will bring the name in EA, um,
Yeah.
and I know you guys played FIFA and stuff like that. So what do you think of, I guess, those sort of models?
So I think, yeah. So from my side, I think on Dan's point, he mentioned about WoW and the expansions and needing to upgrade with those. I mean, you guys know Matt and Dan. How many times do you try and get me to play WoW over the years just for me to kind of come into it
Yeah.
and then fall off after the 3 month is fade? And I can't get into paying monthly for something that you've already paid like the however much price up front.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Plus, I think all of the models are kind of down to the type of player you are with them. So for some reason, I've never been properly able to get into MMORPGs just because I don't know whether it's a time thing or eventually I just kind of lose the will to carry on with the potential grinding aspect.
Yeah.
So that's just for me though. I mean, other people it works perfectly, so it's obviously not too bad. I don't have too much of an issue. So FIFA's a good one actually. So you remember I haven't played a FIFA in about 6 years now because I swear the most recent FIFA is probably the same as the last one I played. They don't never change anything. Um,
Yeah.
but the ultimate team aspect of that is a good example of it with the what I would call pay to win, in that you can shell out hundreds of pounds, and I've sat next to you guys before when you potentially might have done
Oh my goodness.
that.
Too much
Sorry
money.
to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt you, Stefan. There was one day me and Dan were sitting on my sofa, and I linked my card up, my debit card up
Dangerous.
to Microsoft, and honestly, we were like, oh, 70 quid. Shall we do it? Yeah. And you just literally press the button. It's done. And then we pulled nothing from the pack.
Yeah.
So I was like, shall we do it one more time? 70
Oh
quid
my
gone.
gosh.
It was a bad day. Anyway,
So
I
sorry.
racked
Go
up. Oh,
Yeah.
So all I was going to say to that is, from my point of view, I actually don't mind that because you could actually also just play the game, win tournaments, win matches, and buy them without having to use real money, which is what I did. If there's the prospect of me being able to just play the game for longer, or beat people in matches in order to get the stuff to be able to buy it, I don't mind. I don't mind it if there's a quick win thing, because actually eventually I'll get to the same team anyway. But the people paying will just get there sooner. What I
Yeah.
don't like is the aspect of, unless you pay for something, you're never going to get this. There's no way you can build up to it. It's just completely out of your reach. I think
Yeah.
that's a model which, in my mind, never works.
So, uh, so um, what is the most ideal model? Do we think then? You just buy the game and you get the game, and then you buy the expansion, or what are we
yeah.
thinking?
I think that's fine. Like you buy the game, you get the game. That's it, right? Or if you're gonna release loads of expansions and it's a pay per month game, pay per month and don't make you pay for a game. Make me pay £10 a month for as long as I'm
Yeah,
playing it. That's fine. But I don't have to pay £45 at the beginning. And when an
Yeah.
expansion comes out, I don't have to pay another £45. Just £10
Okay.
as long as I'm playing the game, and I can cancel at any point, and then I just don't have the game anymore. Simple as
realistically,
that.
we're kind of talking like a hybrid between like a WoW and the likes of like Fortnite and Apex Legends nowadays. Obviously,
Yeah.
Apex is just like a battle royale. I say just a battle royale. Obviously, I've played it quite a lot. But that's a game where I played it for free for like the first 3 or 4 seasons, and actually thought, okay, I've got a lot out of this game, so I will pay for it. I'll pay for a season pass because I know it's EA, who we don't like to talk about here. It's a swear word, so we can bleep that out if you want. But like, fair enough to them. They've made a game that I've enjoyed, I've played a lot of, and so therefore I don't actually mind paying for a season pass or two
Yeah, you want to
because I've not
support it.
paid anything. Exactly. Whereas, if it'd been the other way, there's plenty of games sitting on my shelf now which I've paid £50 for when they've been released, played it for probably a good chunk of hours, but never ever finished it because I've not been able to get into it. So for
Yeah.
me, that latest model is probably on the right path, where everyone can just get it, and you can play it. You get the free updates and everything, as Dan says, so there's no mismatch between what your friends are playing and what you are. But
Yeah.
if you're getting the most out of it, you can pay for it. And to be honest, the amount of people who probably buy just the cosmetics pack for the sake of it every season, they probably make a good amount of money on their side too.
Oh, absolutely. And Ryan, so what's your verdict? What do you want to happen?
Um, I think I agree with Dan with the subscription thing. I think if you're paying monthly, you should just get the game, like the entire game, because over a year it adds up to a lot of money. Just talking about that though, I've fallen victim to this. So I don't know if any of you have. So when I was younger, playing WoW, subscribing every month, I felt that because I was paying every single month, I had to get as much gameplay in as I possibly could. Like I spent
Yeah.
every breathing moment playing that game. Like I was
Yeah.
full on addicted. So I think that's something we need to watch out for.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely. So To close this topic off, before we move on, I just want to briefly go over mobile gaming because obviously I play a lot of mobile games on stream and sort of thing. And for me personally, obviously microtransaction is a big thing in mobile gaming. As long as you can get everything in the game free, it will take you way more time than someone who's paid money. But as long as you can do it, as long as there's a possibility, then I think it's fine. And I think if there's a cap as well on how much you can spend, I play a game called Summoner's War, and there's a cap of I believe it's £8,000 a week, which sounds insane, but I think it's
Wow.
£8,000 a week. I could be missing figure, but I think it's around about there. That's the cap. I think because it becomes too much of gambling after that or something.
Your next stream idea should be trying to hit the cap. So good luck with that one.
But I think, I think ultimately with what we're saying, as long as we are there's sort of either a monthly payment and we're getting all the content forever, and we're supporting the developers by giving money for that, which is a similar thing to Apex, right? If you buy a season pass, it's almost like you're paying for the updates for the next one, or you pay monthly for something like WoW, and then you'll just be paying for the updates and the expansions to come, or in mobile gaming, microtransactions, but you can get to that place for free as long as you put the hours in. Right, I want to move on to our last topic, actually, and this sort of what this whole thing is about: getting older, and in gaming and having a family, and how that's changed the way we play games. So we've reminisced about times where we've spent 48 hours playing games, and we've taken weeks off school or whatever. How has it changed now? And I'm going to jump to Stefan. How has getting married changed the way you game?
Uh, to be honest, you don't marry someone unless they play games. Is my verdict. So no, no, I think for me it was. I mean, I don't have any kids yet, so it's relatively straightforward. Obviously, quarantine for me means not having to look after kids. I could just play as much as I want. But my wife is someone who's been into games her whole life as well. So we kind of bonded over that when we first met. She was a I think we were talking earlier about Sega and versus PlayStation. She was on the Sega side of it, and I was on the PlayStation side. But we, bonded over the fact that we did both play games. Her was Mario Kart and Zelda and those sorts of things. So yeah, it's not really changed that much versus what I used to be able to do, other than the time I've got to put into it. So
Yeah. Do you
um,
find you've got less sort of free
yeah,
time or whatever? Yeah.
for sure, because obviously I've got now a job, so I have to go to work, unfortunately. And we want to spend time with each other in the
Yeah.
evenings and stuff too after work. But
Yeah.
for example, she's put more time into The Witcher 3 than I have, probably by about 200 hours at this stage. She's played Animal Crossing on the Switch for, again, probably about, I think, over 190 hours since it's come out. So yeah,
Okay.
she's mega into gaming too. So
Mhm.
I guess from my side, it's nothing which is ever ever really going to go away.
Now, Ryan, we don't know each other particularly well,
Yeah.
but how has it been with kids? And when they're with you, do you game less? Do you feel obliged not to, or can you keep a similar routine? What's happened
So
for you?
I've always tried. Well, since I've turned about 25, I think I've always tried to only game in the evening anyway.
Okay.
So having the kids hasn't been too much of an issue because they're quite young, so they go to bed at like 7, and then I can get a good couple of hours in anyway. Um,
Yeah.
the biggest change for me was actually when I first got into a relationship. I think it was about 2 years before I picked up a controller into my relationship because I was
What?
just so focused on that.
Wow. Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and to be honest, she actually bought me the console, which is the only reason I got back into it.
Ah. Okay.
The relationship was more of a strain for me rather than having kids.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. Um, and I think that's crazy that you put it down for so long. I know me and Dan joke about if I start seeing someone, should I hide that I game or should I let it out?
Yeah.
And it's interesting to hear different sides of it, though. The fact that you could go 2 years without that is
Oh yeah, yeah. I
it,
wouldn't
crazy.
recommend it.
No. But so right now you sort of you evening game when they go to bed, and so nothing's really altered that much in how much time you spend.
No, not really. To be fair, I have on the odd occasion booked a few days off work just to play games. But
Sounds
yeah,
good.
it
Sounds good.
hasn't changed too much.
We've all done it.
I mean, we've all been there for sure. The last WoW expansion, yeah. So Dan, now we know each
Yep.
other quite well, and having sort of wife and kids and being so young, the kids, how is gaming altered for you? I can tell you my experiences for playing with you, how it's changed, but yeah,
um, yeah, it's interesting. I think it's different for every person as well. Like, depending on your relationship, depending on how your kids act, things like that. For me, the biggest hit was when, like Ryan was saying, like relationship based. So when I first got married, um, I'd been with Hayley for quite a long time, so she knew I gamed a lot, but I didn't think she realized how much I gamed. And before I was married, it was like get home from work, switch the Xbox on, and pretty much play that until I went to bed. And that was like routine every day. And
yeah.
you're probably online with me most of
Oh
those
yeah,
days.
Steph there as well, I'm
And
sure.
Steph was
Yeah,
there. And then, so when I got married, I'd get home, switch it on, yada yada, do that routine. But then I kind of like, you got to be careful you're not neglecting the other person as well. And so
yeah,
we kind of came up with a kind of a system where I could play at certain times. If she went to bed, I'm cool to play as long as I want. And then when the kids came, that got difficult with my first son, my first kid, not my first son. I've only got one. Um, that got difficult because he was a difficult child. So he
Mhm.
cried a lot. I mean, you probably heard it all the time when he was first
On the
here.
mod.
And then
Yeah,
obviously you don't want to be a jerk. So you don't want to be like, oh, I'm going to sit here and play a game. You can deal with the kid. Like you want to.
yeah.
I want to
I
be
mean,
a co-parent. I want to
you
do the
might
right
want to
thing.
do that, but it's not the right thing to do.
Yeah, it's not the right thing. Like you've got to. I've got other people's lives that I got to consider.
Yeah,
But right now, yeah, it's the. I think similar to Ryan, it's the night gaming. It's once the kids are in bed. Sometimes I have days where I get home and all I want to do is game. So I'll just ask Haley. I'm like, do you mind if tonight I just play games with the guys because I need to like de-stress because that's like my escape from reality. Like if I've had a
Mm.
stressful day or if
yeah,
I need to get away from people, I don't feel sociable. Even though I'm coming on and I'm talking to you guys, it doesn't. I don't have that social strain weirdly,
hmm
and it kind of helps me to escape everything.
yeah. It's
Um,
interesting you're talking about escape, and I know personally that's I think it's probably one of the top reasons why I'm still gaming. I don't know about you guys, but for me, it's like one of those addictions that just help me, as you're saying, help me relax or help me unwind or help me kick back. And I think it's the same for lots of us, especially if we're gaming at this age. It's sort of a crutch, if you will.
Mm.
Like if you're having a bad day or whatever, for me, I go straight to gaming. Do you guys
Yeah.
feel the same or yeah?
Yeah, I think for me it's like, I mean, obviously everyone watches stuff on Netflix or whatever streaming thing they've got nowadays, or not. But for me, it's I won't go and binge watch a series necessarily. I actually find watching the same show repeatedly, for a season, I find it almost difficult to do. After a couple of episodes, I'm kind of tapped out. But
Yeah.
from a gaming perspective, that for me is almost like my binge watching equivalent. It will be, it's the same sort of thing. If I want to de-stress or the escapism aspect, I'd rather jump into a game of some form for a few hours than watch 5 episodes of a certain show.
Yeah. What about you, Ryan? Do you have you through things you've been through? Um, has gaming been sort of like a way for you to sort of escape?
Yeah, 100%. It's my go-to. So if I haven't got the kids with me, if I get in from work at 5:30, I'll jump straight on. There's been a few times when I've even forgot to have dinner. It's got to like half
Oh
10 at
yeah,
night. You get to like half 10, and I'm like, oh, I'm a bit hungry. What's going on? And I go, oh right, yeah, I haven't had dinner. It's time to go to bed. That's the issue.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's my escape. It's definitely a way of relaxing.
I,
Occasionally, like mates will get in touch and be like, "Oh, do you want to come out and have a few drinks?" And I kind of think that I have to every now and then. But I'd much
yeah.
rather be home on Xbox.
it's funny because when we as a friend group go out for a drink, we obviously have a good time when we're out, but it's always like, okay, when we get home, we're all logging on, right? Sort of same thing. I think everything we've been saying today, we've sort of covered the topic of community and sort of friendship groups, and even from when we were kids, teenagers to now, that's the sort of thing that we've keeps us going, being able to chill and relax with each other, but also play with people. I know escaping gaming is my escape, but when I get to escape with friends, it sort of amplifies it.
Yeah.
So we're almost coming to a close here. I just want a closing statement from you guys. The last thing I've got on this list for us to talk about is um, in the future to do with gaming. Is there anything particular you want to see, like maybe in a change of the way games are made or played? If we like the whole, the new thing Google's bringing out, so you could stream the game and play it. Is there anything that you guys particularly want to see? Let's go to Steph first.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously VR is a thing that's taken off a bit at the minute. I like the idea of. I mean, I've not really had much hands-on experience with any of the VR type stuff that's coming out, but I think that'd be pretty cool if it got mainstream. They'd have to find a way to make it work in, I guess, the day-to-day rather than if you have like a warehouse to run around in.
Yeah,
But I think that'd be a cool thing to see. But yeah, I think the Stadia stuff that Google are doing,
yep,
Microsoft are doing it with Game Pass to an extent as well. It's not streaming, but at least you can kind of almost pay a subscription to get access to a library of games. I think EA have got one as well. Sorry, you can bleep out that bit too. Uh, but yeah, so I mean that sort of way of gaming is cool. Getting away from the needing to pay the 50 quid up front to play a game and more into a pay monthly to have a library of games or like the Apex and Fortnite style as well. For me,
yep.
that'd be
Like
good
you,
to see.
what about you, Ryan?
The thing I'd like to see is more of a focus on story-driven games again. Everything just seems
Yeah.
to be focused on online now, and like whilst that's great, if you get hold of a good story-driven game like Uncharted, if any of you played that, um,
I haven't. No.
it's just phenomenal. And there's no online element. It's just one of those games you dive straight in. The graphics are stunning, the story's amazing, and you just want to get to the end of it and see what happens. So I'd like
Yeah.
to see more of those.
Okay. Cool. And Dan.
Yeah, I think like the cloud-based stuff is pretty cool. Like Stadia, I like the idea of that. Paying per month, getting a library of games. Also like it for the fact that you don't have to have a good PC to play it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like you're basically using their graphics, which means that everyone gets to experience the game in its best quality, which is kind of nice. Yeah, Ryan makes a good point. Story-based games. On that, actually, the new Cyberpunk game looks insane, so that
Yeah.
might
It
actually help
does.
that kind of genre. I love customization, so if like as long as new games are bringing in even more customization to make it more real, I love that feel. And I'm also loving the competitive scene of gaming. I'd love to see more televised games, so more esports and things like that, which I think it's going that way anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, to see that as like to see down the pub watching a League of Legends game with a bunch
Yeah.
of lads cheering on a team, it becoming an actual sport, would actually be pretty cool for us gamers, I
Yeah.
think.
Oh, amazing.
So,
Cool. Well, it's funny you mentioned esport. There's another whole topic there. I'm sure we'll cover in the future, but I want to thank you all. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Steph. Thank you, Ryan,
thank
for
you.
coming on.
Problem.
Appreciate it. We'll do more like this in the future, and it was just good to reminisce. There's some things that I haven't thought about in a long time, so it's nice. Um, so thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed episode 1, and we'll see you next time. All right. Thank you all.